Knock, knock.
Who's there?
Caleb.
And Casey with the C4 Podcast.
We're going to talk today about 10 things we learned from growing up on a farm. Number 1, the animals get fed first. It's a very obvious lesson that before we ate breakfast, one of the things that we had to do was go out and feed the horses, and the goats, and the chickens, and the barn cats. And everything else. But it's an important life lesson because the things that you're responsible for need to get taken care of before you do.
Mm-hmm. Yep. You got homework? Do that before you sleep. Yeah. Number 2, tastes better when you grew it. It seems obvious, but when you work for something, always tastes better.
Yeah, the silver spoon analogy from everything else. Everybody kind of intrinsically gets it.
Yeah.
But until you experience it, I shouldn't even say until you experience it, but you really get it when you're eating the tomatoes that you had to hoe out on the weekends.
Yeah.
And
then your sister's got in a fight with 3/4 of them.
Yeah. Number 3, trust is earned. It's a lesson. Taking a bunch of different amalgamations in my life. One thing my dad used to say is a reputation takes a long time to build
and a minute to lose.
And it's true with everything, but animals give you a better understanding of this than anything else in life because you can work for years with a horse. But the minute you do something nasty, the minute your temper flares, and you do something that we'll call it borderline abuse. Like I don't know a better way to describe that.
Yeah. As soon as you lash back for something it did for you.
Yeah, it ruins that whole relationship. And you can spend. A horse is born and you go through this whole process of accumulating it to people, and you wean it away from its mother, and it gets trained, and then if you're going to ride it, there's a whole 9-month process where you're training that horse to carry you around places, and you kind of start that from birth. So you have a horse that's 3 or 4 years old that you've worked with almost every day of its entire life, and you have earned that trust. It's a point that kind of cuts home that it took you a long time to truly get that animal's trust. And the minute you betray that, it's gone.
Go for good.
And in order to get that back, it takes a long time. And it's not, horses is an easy explanation, but it's every animal. And
including
person.
people.
Yeah. Yeah. It takes a long time to earn that trust. And you have to actually earn it by consistently showing up. It's one of those things, and my parents actually did this with discipline. It's one of the things that would happen is when you messed up in life at our house is you would get some punishment. We always had some punishment that would go along with that. We never got grounded for 2 weeks. We always got grounded until we could earn that trust back, until they could trust us to do stuff again, until they could trust us to be a functioning member of society. And I don't know, do you want to expound upon that?
No, I think you hit it pretty much on the head.
All right.
Yeah. Number 4, life don't take days off.
Ever.
Never, ever. It doesn't matter if it's your day off. It doesn't matter if it's Christmas. When that horse goes through the fence, you go out there and you deal with it. And it sucks. We had a lot of life stuff interrupted by growing up on a farm. Just because it's Christmas and Santa Claus showed up doesn't mean those animals ain't hungry.
I specifically remember an instance. There was an overnighter at it's a party at a community center where there's a bunch of 7th graders and 8th graders. And everybody, on Friday night, it's a lock-in. So at 6 p.m., we all show up for pizza and movies, and you pull this wild all-nighter, and there's basketball tournaments and dodgeball, and, growing up on a farm, that's a big event that happened. And I remember coming home from school to a colicking horse. And that horse, one of the things when a horse colics, horses don't have the ability to throw up. So if they get something bad in them, that's got to go through their digestive tract, and there's a chance it doesn't.
And then
you can lose an animal.
Lays on the ground, and it's it's over.
But the only way to kind of work a colic out is you have to keep that animal moving through an entire night.
And feed it vegetable oil. Copious amounts of vegetable oil.
So instead of going to an overnighter that night, Casey and I got to stay up all night with an animal, walking it, taking shifts with my parents, where we would go out there for like an hour and a half and make sure this horse didn't lay down and die and walk it around. And I would go in and wake up my dad, and my dad would go wake up Casey, and Casey would go wake up and start all over again for like 36 hours.
Yeah.
And this big mega pizza pop party sugar fest had to be skipped because life happened. Because you learn real quick, life doesn't take a day off.
It ain't nice about it either.
No.
Number 5. Many hands make light work. This is something we tricked our friends into finding out.
It's
This old buddy lived down the street named Bradley. Bradley didn't live on a farm. Bradley lived in the suburbs. And what I would do is on Friday, when I knew we had a lot of work to do on the weekend, because we were building a house, taking care of animals, I'd call up Bradley, see if he wanted to have a sleepover. Because we got 10 acres property. We go play paintball on the back 40, and it's dope. And yeah, Bradley and I would have fun on Friday night, and we would wake him up and knock on his forehead 6 a.m. Saturday. It's time to go bale hay.
See, I just remember poor Ben and Mitchell. Ben and Mitchell were friends that we had that lived cities where they lived in a giant urban setting. So their Saturdays were full of video games and basketball and around with friends. And they used to come because they were so far away. Instead of us just like hanging out for a night, they come hang out for a week. And my mom kind of had a thing where, like, if your friend was there for a few hours, you kind of got that few hours off. But when Ben and Mitch would come hang out for a week, they'd be cleaning the dog crap out with us and everything else. They lived on the farm
Shucking
for the week.
stalls and all
I
that
kind of always
crap.
felt bad because they want to hang out with us. They roped them into farm life for the week. But back to the point, when you have to do something by yourself,
It's tough.
it's a lot. Yeah, I specifically remember we had an uncle that had an Arabian horse farm that had, I don't know, any given week somewhere between 70 and 100 horses. And there's, 50 stalls lined up in a row to clean. And that would take you, I don't know, personally, more than a day to do.
Yeah.
But
I mean, you're figuring 30 minutes a stall, yeah.
and the other thing is when you have to do it by yourself, it's arduous.
Yeah.
It's a lot.
It's just soul crushing.
It is. And I remember he had this guy that worked for him named Ken that was, he was a little out there. It's one of the things we've always had is friends who are out there because they're interesting people. And he had these theories, and this was before the big conspiracy internet stuff and everything. And I don't know, we're like 13, and Ken's like 50, and life has not treated Ken well. So
He knew who David Icke was in 1999, if that tells you anything.
yeah. So we would be sitting there, where this arduous task of taking manure, horse crap, and taking it, putting it into a wheelbarrow, and hauling it out of the barn, all the way down this 50-stall barn out to the paddock and everything. It's a very arduous task. But every time we got to work with Ken would have these theories and conspiracies and these plans about going and being a sheep farmer and turning your van into a house was the thing. Ken wanted to be a sheep herder and turn a trailer into his home. Like not a mobile home trailer.
He's an OG tiny homer.
Yeah. And he had all these plans and these life experiences. So instead of having this long, arduous task before us, with 3 people, number one, it took that whole process down from a 2-day experience to about a 4-hour experience. And it was a lot more fun. Having somebody else bear part of that burden made it more light than just simple division. It wasn't like 2 people make it go twice as fast. It's 2 people make it go 3 times as fast, and the time even goes faster. Many hands definitely make work lighter.
Number 6, don't squat with your spurs on.
That's it.
That's it. Your butt will thank you. 7, eat what mama makes you. It's a long days on the farm, and sometimes Mama's trying out a new recipe, and it ain't that great. Our mom used to have a saying, hope you like what you eat, because you never have it again. Because she never followed a recipe, nothing. So some days dinner was amazing. Some days it was comparable to cardboard. But you always ate it, because Mama made it, and that's what's available. That's a lot like life. There's something in front of you don't like. Just eat it. You just got to get through it.
I remember Dad's policy. You get a plate of food in front of you. You didn't even serve it yourself. You get a plate of food in front of you. It's got, I don't know, my dad used to call this one thing Slumgolian, which is where we didn't have to go through this, but his mom used to take all of her leftovers from the week and combine them into a dish.
Uh-huh.
So even if you liked something, it was combined with something you didn't like to make a confectioner's.
Yeah. Just mush.
So even if there was a Slumgolian in front of you, that's what was on the table. We didn't grow up with a ton, so it wasn't like Ma would just make mac and cheese along with everything. So you could have your hot dogs and mac and cheese while everybody else ate whatever that was. So it was in front of you. So you have a plate, eat a little bit, and we thought it was clever. And we were like 7. We were like, oh, I'm full. And my dad would torture us to death.
Yeah.
By saying, okay, we'll just leave it there. It'll be there for you when you get hungry.
Yep.
And that was the policy. And listen, we're stubborn. We're real stubborn. We're really, really stubborn. When we would wake up the next morning, instead of having cereal for breakfast, that plate would get pulled out of the fridge and put in front of you for breakfast. Let me tell you something. If you're hungry enough, you eat anything.
Mm-hmm. The only thing worse than bad food is bad food that's been microwaved.
Yeah. But to piggyback on what Casey said, it taught us more than about food.
Mm-hmm.
It's about life's going to put things in front of you that you don't like, you don't want to deal with.
Mm-hmm.
But even if you don't deal with them, eventually
you're going to have to deal with it.
So you might as well eat what's in front of you.
Yep, and it don't age well. And counter that, if there's something good in front of you, enjoy it. Because you might not ever get it again.
Yeah. Number 8, don't say you're bored.
Don't ever say you're bored.
Ever.
Ever, ever.
One thing we learned on the farm is work never stops. There's always something that can be done.
If you tell Dad you're bored, he will find you something to do.
We would, we get some time off, maybe Dad wasn't home yet, or maybe the day was long, and we get some time to just hang out in the barn. We love hanging out in the barn. There was a pile of manure we put the hill on. There was stuff to do. However, sometimes your imagination runs a little bit dry. Mm-hmm. So you get tempted to go up to Papa or Mama. I'm bored.
It's the B word. It's the actual B word.
It's the B word. And if you went and said that, they would find you something to do.
Mostly mucking stalls.
Yeah, and you wouldn't like it. So we learned a valuable lesson on how to entertain yourself. And that, especially, it kind of translates to today because with these stupid...
Red boxes?
Yeah, with the entertainment screens in front of us. I remember specifically there's someone that I live with that had a phone, the touch screen, and the TV going all at once on all of them. And he just looked at me and went, I'm bored. And I cringed. I can't.
You just expect your dad to pop out of the closet.
Because at this point in my life, I am entertained by a lot of things. I can get bored even though the entire information of the internet's in front of me at my fingertips always. Mm-hmm. But I do have that good reminder just from hearing that phrase of, are you really bored or are you just lazy? Mm-hmm. Number 9, always get back on the horse. We grew up on a small horse farm. There was a bunch of horses around. We learned to ride at an early age. I don't know. I remember riding horses at 3, 4 years old. And I remember...
You got bucked at 40 years old?
Yeah, I did. And I got bucked. I have a hard time remembering those ones. But I do remember specifically at 6 years old, I wanted to take I had these little Welsh ponies, which are only like 13, 14 hands. They're small, but they're thick creatures. Mm-hmm. They look like me. And I remember riding this thing over. There's some cross poles. They're only about 18 inches tall, so it's able for a Welsh pony to jump. Riding at this jump, and all of a sudden, my horse just goes, No, we're going this way.
And my butt's going in the air.
I didn't go that way. I kept going over the jump, went right into the pools. And it scared the tar out of me at 6 years old. At 6 years old, this tall is not that high. But for a 6-year-old, that's pretty high. Mm-hmm. It's like me falling off of a draft horse at this point in my life.
I don't know, you bounce better when you're 6.
You do. But I remember gliding with that and sitting there. And that's probably one of the, even up to like 10, 12, that's probably one of the worst falls I've had. And I went, luckily my mom always made us wear a helmet. Mm-hmm. But I went helmet first into this jump. And I remember being like, I'm not getting back on. I won't do it. And my mom taught me a valuable lesson that day. She smacked me. No. It's worse down here. No. My mom explained to me in a logical fashion, which is something I don't think a lot of people have the ability to do. She explained it logically to a 6-year-old. She said, if you don't get back on Heidi, which is my favorite pony in the world's name, if you don't get back on Heidi, Heidi will know that if she wants to be lazy today and doesn't want to give you the time of day, when you saddle her and you go down the fence route, even if there's no jump in there, she knows that if she darts left and you fall off, she's done for the day. Unless you get back on her. Unless you teach her that doing bad things doesn't get rewarded. And it's kind of like that with life.
Oh.
When life bucks you off, you got to get back on.
Even if it beats you.
Number 10, the cost of life. One of the things on a farm we didn't raise a bunch of animals for meat, but we did, however, raise chickens for meat. Did a little bit. And you learn what the real cost of your food and the cost of your life is. Because in order for us, even if you're a vegetarian, it doesn't matter. There's still a cost to life. I get that we're not killing things for that.
Yeah.
But there's still a cost.
Well, I mean, at the end of the day, even if you're vegetarian, somebody to take their time, they had to go out and pick that food, they had to transport it. Like, there's a cost to life.
Yeah.
Even if it isn't death in a traditional sense.
Yeah. But for most people, death is a part of life. Like they in order for us to sustain living, something else has to perish. And that's one of the, I explained this to you the other day. There's a homesteading channel that I've been watching a little bit recently. Not enough to give you a full view on what it is, but enough that I watched these children, before they sent these pigs off for slaughter, thank the pigs for giving them sustenance, for perishing so that they might live. And it's weird to say that.
Yeah, it's a weird
concept that I think these
we're
9, 7, 5, and 3-year-olds understand better than we do.
Yeah.
That something else is dying that they might live. And when you just go get ground meat so you can make your hamburger helper or whatever.
It doesn't even look like meat.
No, it doesn't. And you go and you get it and you're so dissociated from that. You never have to experience the cost of your life. We're told it takes on everything else.
Let's say you experience the cost in a different way. Like exchanging money. Like, I mean, for an average steak, that's an hour of your life.
I get it. I do. But there's a certain truth, a certain, I don't know, purveyance? I don't know.
Well, there's a certain weight to having blood on your own hands.
There is. I remember being 9 years old, holding a chicken down, and, for lack of a better word, dispatching it. And even growing up around the farm, even growing up around life and death, because that's something you see a lot of. I'd had horses die at that point. I mean, cats that have died. I remember. Do you remember? What's that black cat's name that you loved as a kid? The guy hit in the road. I don't know. This cat got hit in the road. We experienced that, but it's different
than taking a life.
Is a 9-year-old. At 9 years old, having to literally, visibly, and physically feel the exchange was a moment. That dawning, that realization never leaves you.
Yeah.
It doesn't. And there's a certain, I won't call it a religious aspect, but
I'd say it's spiritual.
it's transcendent.
Yeah.
That you get to experience when you actually have to do it yourself. And it really grounds home the point that in order for us to exist, something gives. Something does. And I mean, even for vegetarians, I mean,
Even
plants,
vegans,
plants are the only things that are still alive when you eat it. But it's something that I couldn't have learned any other way. Not in the way I learned it. I don't know if you feel the same way, but
Oh yeah, no, I definitely do. Especially the first time you kill a mammal.
mammals are hard.
Chickens were easy. Rabbits, not so much.
It was, and I get we have the luxury in the United States. We have the luxury of not having to have a direct associate. If I never want to see, experience, or feel that, I never have to. I can be a vegetarian in the United States and never even have that life loss to sustain me. But if you go over to other countries, especially impoverished countries,
Oh yeah.
you know, that person living in that third world literally has to murder an animal in order to sustain their own life. They don't have a choice of being vegetarian, of only eating, sustainable
Goods.
plant life. They don't have a choice in life. They literally have to take a life for them to sustain life. It's something that we haven't had to deal with in a long time. But for a lot of people in the world, that's the reality. For most of the world, that's the reality of life. Most people can't even afford to be a vegetarian.
That is expensive. When I was vegan for 6 months, it significantly increased my grocery bill.
Yeah. In order for you to live like that, there's a cost that most people can't pay.
Yeah.
But
anything else you want to expound on that?
No, that's just one thing that we learned. Number 10, but the most important is the cost of your life.
That's all for today. Hit that like button if you liked it. Smash the subscribe button if you're into that. We'll see you next time. Number 11. Don't put down a Salt Lake and act like you ain't got cows.